Way off in the road. Hello, everyone. My name is Skeej, or you can call me Tony, and welcome to another terrible movie review from this guy. So I went to go see Until Dawn Thursday night, and I gotta say that just when you thought video game movies were gearing up to start be something good, maybe cared for, just when they started feeling like they had some quality to them, this movie comes out and just reminds us all what video game movies were like in the early 2000s. Okay, so straight up, I don't think this movie's terrible or anything. It's not an offense to the eyes. It's not awful, but it wasn't great. I never got into the Until Dawn games. I know there's multiple different, not Until Dawn stories, but games from the developer that all are very cinematic horror. I never really play them. I did play Until Dawn for about 10 minutes. That was about it. I stopped and then I figured I'd pick it up again at some point, and that never ended up happening. So my wealth of knowledge of the lore and the backstory of all this is almost zero. So I ended up doing a little bit of research for this movie because it's a really popular game that people seem to like. The movie just kind of had me scratching my head the whole time thinking, is this what people really like? Turns out no. No. With a $15 million budget, this is a low budget horror movie, and I will give credit where credit is due. It feels like a low budget horror movie filled with practical effects, and they do some pretty interesting stuff with those practical effects. Like I said, this movie isn't terrible, but it's not great, and to me, I think a large portion of that comes down to the cast. You know, they try to sell us on the fact that they are best friends with a bond thicker than molasses, and while that may be the case to them, all I felt was like it was just a group of people just trying to emotionally walk all over each other, trying to snap out the most quippiest and demeaning thing that they could to each other as quick as possible. And while, yes, with close friends, this is kind of how it looks sometimes, you know, you poke and jab at each other. With this group of friends, I just wasn't really buying their friendship. They kind of seem more like a group of kids on a field trip more than close friends that chose to be together for life. And a bit of this movie, this may be a spoiler, but it's really just more one sentence dialogue, really, is just them saying over and over again that I'd rather die with my friends than live on alone, or I will do anything, I'll die for my friends, just over and over again. It felt to me more like they didn't believe it, but they were more saying it because it was the most noblest thing to say. Like, who are you trying to convince that you are really willing to die for these people? I know they are your very close friends. You keep saying that, but it just didn't feel like you meant what you were saying. To be fair, one of the guys in the group isn't really a core member of the group of friends. He's actually dating one of the core friend members, so he's kind of more just along for the ride. He's only known them for a few months. He's the odd man out in this group of people. Also, this movie isn't very scary. Not that it's not genred as a scary movie, it's that the scares didn't really do anything for me. The jump scares were really more just moments of loudness in the movie. They just, you could see them coming from a mile away. Way off in the road, you could see those jump scares coming along, and it didn't really have much of a reaction to any of them. But to its credit, they do come with like one or two moments where you're just like, oh, that was left of center. That was out of left field. I wasn't expecting that. So there is something here, but is it enough? Okay, so at this point, I'm gonna start getting into spoilers and kind of doing a comparison between game and movie because I think that's probably more what people are looking for. How does this fare compared to the game? And I know some people say that it's not fair to compare an adaptation to the source material. Uh, do with this information what you will. I mean, I'm a person that never even played the game, so all I really know and experience of this game really is what is from this movie. But I do gotta say, after reading up on the story of the game, God, that story just sounds so good. I wish I would have just stuck with the game. It sounds so interesting. I might go back and play it now. Okay, so spoiler time. First off, this may have been in the trailer, but This isn't a retelling of the game's story. This isn't really an adaptation of the game's story. This is a wholly new story with new characters that happens to be set in the Until Dawn game universe. So, as I understand it, Until Dawn is a game about a slasher psycho trying to get revenge against his friends up in a snowy ski resort in Canada. Unbeknownst to everyone there, the resort is overrun with flesh-eating evil Wendigo creatures, and everyone has to survive the night until dawn when the Wendigos go back into hibernation and a rescue helicopter can come and save them all. Hence the name Until Dawn. Now, in this movie, a group of college kids take their friend to the last known location of her missing sister to try and help her get some closure. Presumably, she's missing or dead, unfortunately. They come across Peter Stormare's character, Dr. Hill, who is pretending to be a gas station attendant, just watching and examining people that pass through on their way to the haunted cabin. Yes, this movie does take place in a cabin in bumfuck America and not a snowy ski resort in the middle of Canada. So they make it to the cabin, but first they have to drive through a water wall. It's just a brick ton of rain coming down on them that stops at an exact location, which is basically creating a barrier around the cabin. This is the movie's way of explaining invisible wall barriers in video games. I mean, we all know what invisible wall barriers are. So they go into the cabin hoping to find answers, which they do. They find a wall with dozens of missing persons posters, including the protagonist's sister. They also find a guest book with people's names written over and over again, but each time it's written, it gets worse and worse, like scribbled handwriting. And also a wall clock with a hourglass that starts up, signaling that the time has started for them to survive the night until dawn, where if they survive, they get to leave, but if not, they have to relive the night over and over and over again, finding new and horrible ways to die. Now, why is this happening? Why are they going through the worst version of Groundhog's Day ever? I kind of drifted in and out, but from what I could piece together, Peter Stormare's character, Dr. Hill, he's testing out this place's magical properties and finding out that the fear of death night after night is turning people into horrible Wendigo zombie monsters, I think. With test subjects usually only lasting about 11 nights before they fully transform. Yeah, so I know in the game, the way you turn into a Wendigo is if you are on that ski resort, that mountain area in the game, if you succumb to cannibalism for any reason, that automatically invites the Wendigo spirit to inhabit your body. They do show a smidge of that with a test subject going like 10 nights and looking so zombified after 10 nights, and he starts to get a little bite of human flesh, and then on the 11th night he's just full on Wendigo, which is just like more of a monstrous version of a zombie. But it seemed more like it was the night after night of dying is what transforms you because of the fear. Sure, why not? So I did mention this movie's not very scary. It is pretty gory. It has some pretty interesting death scenes with some practical effects, maybe someone getting stabbed through the eye, or the killer psycho guy getting his head smashed in at the end. And from the looks of it, it's all practically done. So it's pretty cool to watch. I mean, if nothing else, you just watch these practical effects and marvel at like, yeah, this is like real what I'm seeing on screen. Maybe not someone getting stabbed in the eye or their head smashed, but at least what you're watching looks pretty cool. But what I want to discuss in terms of practical and gore is so stupid. So a scene happens. It all starts with a cup of water. So if you want to survive the night, your best bet is to find a safe spot, a safe room, and hunker down with all your friends, lock yourself in that room, and just wait it out. Well, the good doctor does not like that idea. He doesn't like just watching his test subjects just kind of sit and be safe. He wants fear and he wants action, and he's going to get it. So while the group sits in a bathroom, locked up, all safe, they start to get a little thirsty. Oh, maybe I'm getting a little thirsty. They start to get a little thirsty, and they decide to get a glass of sink water, and one guy downs a glass of sink water. He fills it up again and passes it around. The rest of the group takes a sip of sink water. Well, that sink water happens to be poisoned. With what? No freaking clue. I don't think there's anything on this earth that makes this kind of poison. At first, the guy that downs the glass, he gets a little tickle in his throat. And then his tickle turns into a smoker's cough. And then his smoker's cough turns into a full-on cough attack. And then that cough attack leads into him just fucking blowing up. Not a fiery explosion, just a bloody, just loud bang of just like a cannonball hit him. He blows to pieces right in front of everyone. And everyone just starts freaking out. I mean, who wouldn't? They kind of all deduce real quick that, oh crap, it's the water. It was just so random and out of nowhere that I would think I was as taken aback as the characters on screen were. I, this was probably the only part of the movie that just had me. I don't know how else to describe it. It was that insane. So everyone drank the water, but the first guy, he downed a glass. So he got off easy. He blew up like in a matter of a second. Everyone else, not so lucky. It's just many explosions of limb shattering and but you can't look away. You cannot look away. You have to watch because it's all there. And poor Megan, just poor Megan, the punching bag of just this entire nightly awful experimentation. I'm pretty sure she gets the worst of every night. Of every night experiment, she gets the worst of it, and she seems like the nicest out of the group, the kindest one out of the group, and she gets the most punishment out of all of them. And she was my favorite character out of all of them, and it just sucked to watch her, just the torment. I mean, you're just seeing her get her face smashed in and then getting possessed and then her neck snapped when the body explosion starts happening. Just like her leg at the knee just blows off and she's just laying on the floor in pain until you see that her stomach's expanding until her stomach kind of blows out, bursts. Not even more of an explosion. It looks like it just expands until it just can't expand anymore and starts blowing out the side until she's just writhing in pain and then her head blows off. Like they finally put her out of her misery for that night. She's also the one that seems to have the most physical signs of turning into a Wendigo, like her hair falling out, her skin turning super pale and just not looking great. She also might be a psychic, but she just gets shit on by her friends because they just think she's nuts for thinking that she's a psychic, but I think she might actually be a psychic. So there might be psychics in the Until Dawn universe. I mean, if there's Wendigo spirits, why can't there be psychics? Maybe there's psychics in the game. I don't know. I don't know. Another night, she just gets dragged off by a Wendigo into the darkness. And then towards the end, she gets captured and she's strapped down to a chair with a Wendigo like chained up against the wall, just constantly lashing at her for hours. It's just not her day. Anyway, so halfway through the movie, the sister finds out that her missing sister has been turned into a Wendigo, and she's been terrorizing them the whole time. But I'm just gonna skip to the end. In the movie, there is like a little found footage montage of like more nights that we didn't really see because they kind of lost their memory. It's all found footage on a phone. That kind of looked kind of interesting. That looked pretty cool. Watching the found footage version of like them just going through and being tormented by other stuff. That I did kind of enjoy that. I wish that maybe they would have did it that way, where it was a found footage of just night after night, just different horrible things. I did like that a lot. But towards the end of the movie, our protagonist goes out to find the doctor, get some answers, and get the heck out of this cabin, just be done with all this. Before she finds the doctor, she faces off against her sister, the Winda sister, and tackles her onto a spike, impaling her right through the torso, and that pretty much kills the Winda sister. So she goes into a room and finally meets face to face with Dr. Hill. They have a conversation where the doctor says, I've been watching you for a long time. You have all these mental illnesses going on. You have so many different things wrong with you, and they're all manifestations. They all manifest and affect what happens to you guys each night. So all this is because of your mental illness issues going on. So in a sense, it's kind of like it's all in her head, but it's not all in her head. It's actually real. And while the conversation's going on, the doctor is drinking a cup of coffee, and he sets it down on a desk. They're underground, and this underground area happens to be leaking. There's water leaking from the roof. And remember, the water's poisonous. Don't drink the water. So the doctor happens to set his cup of coffee down right next to where this giant leak is happening, creating a giant puddle. And he turns his back to our protagonist, who happens to just nudge the coffee along to the water, you just hear it splashing, and then she just nudges his back, and right as she does so, the doctor turns around and, ooh, my coffee. Takes a drink and succumbs to his own poison and explodes. I kid you not. That's what happens. I maybe it's me. I find a general rule that if I'm consuming something, eating or drinking something, and I set it down, even if that water isn't poisonous, I'm probably not going to set my food or coffee, drink down next to any type of leaking water because I don't know where that water is coming from. I do not want that in what I'm about to drink. I do not want that inside my body, even if it's not poison that's going to make me explode. I mean, this guy is just a madman, just setting his coffee down right where there's like a giant leak going on. Who wants leaky, roofy, sooty coffee water? But yes, Peter Stormare, the character Dr. Hill in the video game, he dies in this movie. He blows up. So whatever his ending was in the game, if you were happy that he lived or whatever, I'm sorry to say, he's dead. He died. He did. That's pretty much it. All five of our characters, they are able to escape the Wendigos and make it until dawn. They get out alive, and then they're able to leave the cabin. And it's kind of weird because I thought they kind of nonchalantly left the cabin like they were just like, all right, let's get out of here. Cool, let's go. I was thinking, wouldn't you guys be panicked or like freaking out? You know that Rick and Morty episode where they barely escape with their lives? You'd think it would be like that, but they're just like, all right, cool, let's hit the road so we can beat traffic. And that's the movie Until Dawn. That's the movie. I don't think there's an end credit. I'm pretty sure that was all of it. Anyways, go check out the movie. I'm not a fan, but if nothing else, to celebrate the pretty cool practical special effects, I think that's pretty cool. It does have a runtime of 1 hour and 43 minutes, but I did think the movie kind of ran long. It somehow felt way longer than its runtime. I remember just sitting there like checking the time, thinking like, has this movie been going for 2 hours? I don't like. Why does it feel like I've been sitting in this chair for 2 hours, and it was only like 45 minutes? You know, this movie also hits the ground running. It also like gets into the whole premise like straight away. It doesn't take much time. There's really only about like 10, 15 minutes maybe to set up the location and everything, and then it just wants to get started and start showing like each night and just getting into the horror, getting into the action. I just wish I loved what was on screen more because I did like that whole thing of just like, okay, so we're just starting like pretty quickly. Like, you just need to know the characters' names and kind of just their vibe a little bit and like why they're here, and that's it. It's on. I didn't really care for what got on once it started going. It was meh. Cabin in the Woods did it better. But anyways, that is it for my review of Until Dawn. And until then,